welcome back to week 9, I think, HoB 2020. Welcome, Will.
Thank you, Jack. I think it is week 9.
You've grown, you seem taller. No, maybe I've shrunk.
I've got high heels on.
You've got big boots on, I've got my slippers on again. Last week, Alex was on talking about how we help people, and we thought that would be the start of a new theme, talking about who we help, the vulnerable and the homeless. We know we've spoken about it before, but we thought we'd dive in just a little bit more in depth, because a lot of the times, well, when we do these videos, just very briefly, we tend to skirt around stuff, and we thought we'd take a deeper dive into what actually
I think
vulnerable means.
Yeah, and I think the whole point about vulnerability, I think, for a lot of people is that it is very unseen in the community.
Well, it can be.
It can, yeah, and you can find that people most likely become vulnerable for all sorts of reasons. And I think that's quite often assumptions that people make, that it's very obvious. But that actually isn't the case, and maybe what we're going to talk about now might just give people a little bit of an alertness to the breadth of vulnerability within the community.
What we're going to talk about is you've seen in your other guise as a street pastor.
Yes.
That there has been an increase in people knocking on our door at Cafe 43 and making beds in doorways in Stafford.
Yeah.
And we don't tend to like to bring up that kind of thing because it can be quite a incendiary statement, because a lot of people work very, very hard to make sure there aren't any homeless people, not in nefarious ways, but to help them. So when there is an increase, some people can think, oh no, somebody's not doing their job. But sometimes it's just the way of the world. And that is the way of the world at the moment, Will. With lockdown, with the word we're not allowed to mention going on, it has had a huge effect. But we're going to put that in context of the news that's come out this week as you're watching this. We're recording this before there's a press conference about the vaccine, but we do know that there's going to be something said about it. That's great news. Things are still getting worse, and they're not going to get better as soon as there's a vaccine. Well, as soon as everything starts to be fine for the general people, it's going to take a long time for the world in which we help out to recover.
It's the lag curve.
Lag time.
Yeah, or the lag time.
My voice broke.
I think the issue you've highlighted there is that for those who can get up and go and make things happen and move along in lives, they're always going to be at the front end of most queues. The friends that we support are genuinely always at the back, and by the time they get to the front has moved on a bit. So there is some really positive news, but I think what we're trying to get over a message without sounding like doom and gloom merchants is that this is still with us for some considerable time, and I'm talking about a year, maybe 2 years.
Oh, at least.
And
it's very easy to forget about us and the people we help when there's good times.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that is going to impact immeasurably, and we will be busy with that, is mental health and well-being. Practical issues around debt, folk who've lost their jobs, whether they've been furloughed or not. Debt, which is a result of debt pre-COVID, which was sort of offset by the government's initiative during COVID, which won't have gone away. I mean, there's a lot of debt collecting letters that are now hitting doorsteps.
And we're going back into another one.
And we're going back into, And I think the issue for a lot of our friends is that debt may have been ignored to begin with. It is still there. So we've got to work very hard to address that. I mean, the great thing is having Karen at the CAB on board with us, is that we can look at that. But the suggestion that those sorts of difficulties are going to go away is not a reality. And our friends choose to want to wish that the COVID thing has taken all of that old stuff away. It is still there, and we're going to be working through that over the next 6 months to a year or more.
Oh yeah, definitely. And when we talk about our friends, there's obviously, like we said, homeless people, a very, very obvious section of the vulnerable people. But there is also a lot of people in our community who don't look vulnerable. They don't, we were talking before this, how to describe people who are vulnerable, and it's very easy to think vulnerable, somebody who looks like they haven't had a shower for a long time, haven't changed their clothes. There will be a lot of people after this who need our support, who have lost their job, found another job, but are paying off debt from whatever happens. Just because you've got a job, just because you're earning, doesn't mean you get all the money you work for. We get a lot of people, Will, who make enough money But a lot of that is taken away through debts,
Yeah.
through fines for not
costs.
paying debts,
Yeah.
court costs for not paying debts, all that kind of thing. So it isn't always obvious
No.
who needs help.
There's another characteristic which we've identified this week actually, and that is the rural vulnerability. So there's a lot of folk who are living in isolation who are really, really struggling because they haven't got a neighbourhood connection. And all the things around utility costs and the mismanagement and debt that's gone into that. And that's a real problem because they really are struggling to make contact with any agencies.
I mean, yeah, just imagine if you need a car to get to work, but because you need a car to get to work, all the money you earn goes on the maintenance and the fuel of your car. So you're basically going to work just to fuel your car. And that sounds, people say, oh, quickly get another job or whatever. It's not that simple. So we might be helping somebody who's in full-time employment, who owns a car, but that money just doesn't stretch far enough.
Yeah.
I think we say on almost all these videos, if you are struggling, if you know somebody who's struggling, it might be a family friend, it might be a neighbour, it might be somebody that you just know anecdotally, do encourage them to get in touch, or get in touch with us and ask us to reach out. We don't worry if somebody puts the phone down and says, no, I don't need your help. It really doesn't bother us. As long as we're attempting to reach the people who need our help, that is good by us. But there's a lot of obvious people who struggle, there's a lot of not obvious people who struggle, but that will not go away when there's good times.
We're here to help. So, we can put you in touch with an agency.
If you're from an agency and you know somebody who needs help, or you think, that's not the help that House of Bread provide, get in touch. We might be able to do that for that person, or we might know another agency who does, or charity.
Yeah, cool.
Wonderful. We really hope that people enjoy watching these videos. We talk about stuff that's important to us. We hope it comes across to you, that it's important and that it means you can help better, hopefully. A lot of great feedback, Will, last week, just because I wasn't on it, I think. That people enjoyed Alex talking. I'm sure there's not... Causation is not causation. Causality is not causation, whatever that is.
I think it was to give people the depth of the work you're doing.
But she will be coming back and we'll be doing lots more talking on how we help people and why we help people and all that kind of stuff that Alex is really, really passionate about. We are as well, but it's just great to have a different voice talking about it. Thank you, Will, for joining me.
Thank you, Jack, as ever.
Thank you very much for watching. We shall see you next time for HoB News and beyond. Goodbye.
Bye.